Yes guys, welcome back to the George Benson football channel. Welcome to one of the most requested videos of the entire pre-season. I have left it as late as I physically could in order to get this video recorded, edited and uploaded before Liverpool versus Norwich kicks off the Premier League on Friday evening. So these are my Premier League predictions. This is where I think every team is going to finish. At the time of recording, we've still got 5 hours to go until the transfer deadline has finished. There are some crazy transfers that still could be going ahead, which could affect the squads, the availability of certain players, the depth, the quality within certain sides. There's only so late I can leave this until I can no longer post it. So I made my predictions before Arsenal signed Nicolas Pepe. That might give a clue to some of you that have been paying attention to recent videos. I'm not going to change anything because despite having seen clubs make new signings, miss out on players, blah, 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 some clubs have lost players and not been able to bring anyone else in, I'm going to stick with my original predictions because I believe in them. And as always, carry on the conversation in the comments down below. Let me know who you think is finishing where in the Premier League this season. So let's start right at the bottom, the place that nobody wants to occupy. I've made this little graphic. I hope you like it. It took me a bit of time. It's the bottom of the table, sadly, and not seeing a second season consecutively in the Premier League is Sheffield United. I just don't think they've brought in enough quality to be able to stay up. I may have thought their kit was Champions League standard, but sadly, they can't get points for how good their kit is. So Sheffield United are bottom of the table, and it leads me into 19th place, a team who were definitely in the relegation zone in terms of my kit ratings. I've gone with Norwich. Again, I don't feel as though they've strengthened in enough areas. I think they're going to play some very exciting football at times. I think there could be a few shock results with Norwich this season. I think they could beat some of the big boys, but I think they're going to get battered on too many occasions, and I don't think they're going to pick up enough points away from home. So I've stuck Norwich in 19th place. Now then, 18th. Who else do I think is finishing in the relegation zone? They've had a good run in the Premier League. They've been pretty good at times, and it's looked like it was going downhill, and they've stayed up. Brighton. I've put them in 18th place. I think Brighton are going to go down, sadly. I think that, again, I don't think they're strengthening enough, considering that this has been quite a quiet transfer window in the Premier League. I just don't see... Glenn Murray's getting older and older. I don't see where the goals are going to come from for Brighton, and I feel as though they're going to struggle again this season against some of the bigger teams. So Brighton in 18th. Let's see who just about misses the drop. So as with many of my Premier League predictions this season, it was a bit of a coins toss between like heads or tails. Who do I think is going to finish one place above the other? And in 17th place, just missing out on relegation, I've gone with Burnley. They've kind of been deteriorating slightly. Last season they weren't anywhere near as good. Potentially on the final day today they could lose Tarkowski as well. I think if they do lose him, I think they're potentially going down. But even if they do keep Tarkowski, again, it's the goals. I don't see Burnley outscoring enough teams to be able to get enough points this season in the Premier League. So I've stuck Burnley in 17th. For the rest of the bottom half of the table, I'm going to try and keep it succinct, short and sweet, because I think that a lot of these could interchange quite frequently as the season goes on. There are some teams in there that can only really be looking at a mid-table finish realistically this season because of their squad depth and quality. And I think for some of these teams, it would be considered a success finishing in these positions. So in 16th position, just ahead of missing out on the drop zone, is Crystal Palace. Again, if they keep Wilfried Zaha, they could be in for a better season. If they do lose Wilfried Zaha today on deadline day, then they could be in a lot of trouble. So 16th place for Palace. They're always kind of around that 12th place mark. It's just their thing now, isn't it? They kind of got like the eagle stamp on that mid-table, but I think this season it's not going to be as high up the table. I've put them in 16th. Now, one prediction that is a little bit optimistic, and I actually do have a soft spot for Newcastle. I'm not going to lie. I don't support them, so don't get the wrong idea, but I like Newcastle. I want them to be in the Premier League. They're a Premier League club, and I actually feel sorry for their fan base for having to suffer with Mike Ashley as their owner. I've put them in 15th. I think losing Rafa Benitez is a massive deal, and Newcastle will be one of the favourites for relegation this season, but with that fan base behind them, I know that they've been relegated a couple of times now, and they could easily be relegated again with the lack of quality within that squad. I think their new striker, our man Joe Linton, I think he's going to score. He's in my fantasy team. So I think this is more of an optimistic prediction more than anything else, to be fair. Newcastle in 15th, and then new boys Aston Villa in 14th. They spent a lot of money. Last season I made a very bold prediction in saying that Fulham were going to finish in the top half of the Premier League table. That came to bite me in the backside come the end of the season. They got relegated. They were flipping awful in the Premier League last season. Aston Villa have spent a ton of money money again. They've bought in over 10 players. That isn't necessarily going to guarantee them success. Aston Villa, they got John Terry within the staff, so I kind of have a little soft spot for them this season again as well. Aston Villa, they're a club that belong in the Premier League. I think that the stature of the club, the fan base, and I think that the fact they've spent so much money, it could go one or two ways, and I think they're going to consolidate themselves back in the Premier League again, and I don't expect them to go down. So I've put them in 14th, leading us into 13th place, Bournemouth. They've got one of the leakiest defences in the Premier League. It's something that if they manage to keep hold of Nathan Ake, they might be able to work on that going into this season. I think Bournemouth could struggle. I think they've done very well since they got promoted into the Premier League. It's still one of the best success stories since the turn of the millennia in the UK. So Bournemouth in 13th, and it moves us into the second team on the South Coast. Apart from Brighton, we sent them down, Southampton to finish in 12th. I think under Ralph Hasenhüttl, I may have completely butchered that, but I apologise if I did. They've got a very good manager there, and towards the second half of last season, they looked as though they could have gone down at stages last year, but they managed to steady the ship. I think with a good manager, they've kept hold of him. They've managed to keep hold of some key players. I think they've brought in a couple of players as well. I think Southampton can improve, and I think if they do finish 12th, it's not quite up to the top half finishes that they were used to, say, 5 or 6 years ago, but I think the Saints can be quite happy to finish 12th this year. So this is where it starts to get interesting. There are quite a few teams in the Premier League who are knocking on the door of the top 6, considering Chelsea haven't been able to strengthen that much, United haven't been able to strengthen that much either. There could be quite a few teams in the bottom half of the Premier League table that are looking to close that gap even more on the top 6 this season. And I think starting with 11th place Watford, I think Watford are a team again who could kind of be challengers for pushing up the table. I've put Watford in 11th because I think the teams that I've put above them have actually got better squads. But Watford have had some good business in the summer. They've kept hold of Garcia as their manager. They were difficult to beat last season. And I feel as though 11th place again, they'll probably be looking higher than that. Watford will be aiming for a top half finish. But like I said, compared to the teams above them, I don't think they're going to quite cut it. Leading us into 10th place in the Premier League table, and this is where it could all start to get a little bit wrong. I think the bottom half, there's a clear divide in the quality of teams in the Premier League between the top half and the second half of the table from what I've done with my predictions. Last season, a lot of people were saying that if Wolves can have a decent summer of business, they've managed to sign Raul Jimenez on a permanent, and he was great for them last season. They've brought in some more players, and they've kept Ruben Neves as well, who's a great player for them. They could be progressing further up the table. However, I've got a sneaky suspicion we could be seeing Wolves in the latter stages of the Europa League this season. I don't know why. I just think they've got a good manager, and they've got a good system that could work quite well in Europe. So I'm going to make a bold statement and say that Wolves are going to finish 10th, which would be a very good season if they manage to make it all the way to the quarterfinals of the Europa League, which is a bold prediction I'm making right now. So 9th place in the table, I've gone with West Ham. I've put them to draw with Manchester City on the opening day of the season. If you haven't seen my Premier League predictions video yet, I'm kind of toying between the idea of putting them one up one day and one up the next day. I don't know which one it was, but I think West Ham are going to be tough to beat this season. I think that they're going to score a lot of goals. I think they've got some very good attacking players. Do I think they're going to be able to be consistent? No, but I think they will be consistently better than they were at times last season. I think they finished the season quite well. West Ham in 9th means Leicester in 8th. Brendan Rodgers is Leicester. He came in last season. He steadied the ship. At times, I hate using that phrase, steady the ship. I think that's the second time I've used it, but it's true. He did steady the ship, if we're looking at Leicester City as a ship. I mean, they were the Premier League champions a few years ago. It's an oil tanker, if anything. So, Leicester in 8th. I think, again, it's a good season. I think they're going to be looking higher. They've bought in Tielemans on a permanent transfer now. Ayoze Perez from Newcastle, he could do a job. And I think they're going to be very exciting to watch. I think they're going to be very difficult to beat at their home ground, but I don't see them getting enough points against the big teams away from home. So Leicester in 8th, leading us into 7th. Have I made any changes to the regular top 6 in the Premier League? The answer is, I'm not going to keep the suspense for too long because I want to keep you guys interested in this video. 7th, I've given to Everton. I think that the signing of Keane from Juventus is a crazy sale from Juventus because he's young, he works hard, he's talented, and for the price, I think Everton have got one of the bargains of the summer transfer window. They missed out on Zuma, it looks like. I may be completely eating my words now. If Chelsea sell Luiz and Zuma on the final day of deadline day, that would be a massive disaster, and Chelsea could end up finishing 7th, but rolling with the fact that Zuma didn't sign for Everton. Everton to finish 7th, just behind. This is where it really gets interesting. Manchester United. It was looking at one stage as though they were going to have a very exciting transfer window. Romelu Lukaku was going to go to Juve, he's going to go to Inter. They get Dybala as a replacement, which could be a great signing if they can get him and Rashford linking up together. Dybala rejected United, or United maybe rejected Dybala because of the wage demands. So I don't think United have strengthened enough. I think the midfield is very lightweight. I don't think there's enough quality in that midfield to be able to push forward anything above the top 6. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is he going to last the season? I don't think he is. I think United are going to struggle, and then I think they might make a managerial change in like January, February, and then they might build up towards the end of next season by signing a few players in January. I don't see them finishing in the top 4. So 5th place. This is where it gets very difficult. This is where it gets very controversial. This is where I fear that I've made a dreadful mistake. I really hope that I haven't. I've put Arsenal in 5th. It's looking like David Luiz is going to sign. Will that solve their defensive issues in centre-back? I don't think it was enough of a signing, no offence, to be able to completely overhaul a defensive line that needed a complete overhaul, let's be honest. Bellerin's still injured. I think they're going to struggle defensively, but going forward, they've arguably got as good of an attack as any in the Premier League. So Arsenal to just miss out for me, which means the top 4 sits kindly for Chelsea in 4th. I've gone with the beloved Blues in 4th place. As I said in my interview, ironically with David Luiz, Chelsea are always looking to try and win the title. It's the ambition at the start of the season, whether it is a realistic expectation upon the shoulders of the manager, or whether it's just an inbuilt desire and need to be challenging. It's something that is built within the Chelsea DNA now. So, you know, ever since the Abramovich era, we've been there or thereabouts. This season, the goal has to be to compete. I don't think we're going to be able to compete with City and Liverpool. I think we could push Spurs close, potentially. That pretty much gives away the rest of my predictions, doesn't it? But Chelsea to finish 4th, and then Spurs to finish 3rd. It's looking like it's going to be a busy deadline day again for Tottenham. However, I don't think they're going to be able to be consistent enough to overhaul Liverpool and Manchester City. I'm going to give my reasons for my top 2 in the order in which I've gone with after we finish speaking about Spurs. I think of all of the London clubs, Tottenham have got probably the most balanced team. I think Chelsea have got an exciting team, but I'm not convinced enough defensively that we're not going to ship in a load of goals this season. And I think that Spurs will be a lot more consistent. I think at times, again, they will push the top 2 all the way, and then they might fall short if they get a Champions League run again. It's very difficult to say what's going to happen with Tottenham. I think that Pochettino, if he doesn't manage to break through the City, Klopp, Guardiola, Liverpool barrier this season, I think Pochettino potentially might leave. He seems to love Tottenham, but at the same time, you could see things going wrong for Zidane at Real Madrid. It's not been the best pre-season. Who's the man that Real Madrid might go for? Pochettino. And if he doesn't break into the top 2 this season and really challenge for the Premier League title, he might just leave. So I'm putting Spurs in 3rd, which leads us into the top 2. Who does George Benson think is going to win the Premier League this season? I said it last year, I got it wrong. I'm going to say the same again. I think Liverpool, despite not strengthening that much over the summer, despite Manchester City strengthening again, I think Liverpool are going to win the Premier League this season. They've not won the Premier League. I said it last year, and they could not have done any more, realistically, to overhaul Manchester City. We're talking about a Manchester City team that are one of the best, if not arguably the best Premier League team there's ever been. There's just something about Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool that it pains me to say it as a Chelsea fan. It's kind of, if you're a Liverpool fan, it's almost a thing of beauty in a sense, because your manager literally loves your club as much as the fans do. The players play for him. There is a real belief at Liverpool that they can overhaul Manchester City, and whether it was a financial thing or not that they've not signed players this summer, I genuinely believe a large portion of that is Jurgen Klopp is genuinely happy with the quality of players he's already got in the squad. They won the Champions League last season, which is absolutely incredible. The one that Liverpool want to win above anything else is the Premier League. And for no reason other than the bond that Jurgen Klopp has with his players, they came so close last season. I think it's going to go right down to the wire again, but I can just see Liverpool winning it this time around. I might be barking up the wrong tree. It might be stupid to be not thinking that this incredible Manchester City team with Pep Guardiola as their manager, with even more great players in their team, I might be being completely crazy to think that they won't retain it for a 3rd season in a row. Will they be as hungry? I don't think that's really something to worry about with Pep as their manager. I think they will be. City really want the Champions League. I expect them to go all the way in that competition this year. Liverpool really want the Premier League, so I think that's the way it's going to go. I can see City potentially potentially winning the Champions League, Liverpool winning the Premier League, and I guess you could say everyone's happy. Those are my predictions. I've tried to keep this as short and sweet and succinct as possible. There's going to be loads of breakdowns of different clubs, different performances, the way things are going. I'm going to relate back to this video as the season goes on. I've obviously got my weekly prediction series, which if you're not yet following me on Twitter, be sure to follow me, because in order to enter the weekly prediction series, you need to tweet me your predictions each game week. So who knows what's going to happen. We'll keep it updated as the season goes on. Of course, I did the video with David Luiz for the BT Sports script. If you want to go and watch that one and see how my predictions compare to that, be sure to go and check out that video. I will leave it here on the end screen of this vid. Thank you guys for watching. As always, carry on the conversation in the comments down below. Who's going to finish where? Are you excited for your club season? I'm pretty excited for Chelsea's season, and I wouldn't be too disappointed with 4th. But as long as you win the Champions League, though, that's what we really want, isn't it? I'm joking. Anyway, I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.